We're going to talk all about training camp on today's episode. But before we do, the NFL Hall of Fame game is just around the corner. And if we pick up 300 likes on today's show, I've got the green light from the bosses here at Chat Sports to do a live watch party for this game on Thursday, August 3rd. So make sure to like the video. If you have never liked a video before, this would be a good time to break the seal and hit that thumbs up button. Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here, talking about players with the most to prove at training camp. There are a lot of these articles out there, and they are more or less saying the same thing, right? Players with the most on the line, players with the most to prove, and there's just different angles of looking at it. But at the end of the day, we're all just starving for football. And so we're going to look at three players that might not be household names, might not be on tickets, but they are players that have a lot to prove at training camp for either their roster spot or where they stand on the depth chart. So the first player I think that has the most to prove is running back Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford is pretty well cemented on this 53-man roster, so that's not why we're talking about the former fifth-round pick out of Cincinnati, but we are talking about Jerome Ford because of the big elephant in the room, and that is the departure of Kareem Hunt and whether or not Jerome Ford is ready to take on that RB2 role, right? Can he prove to the coaching staff, I can be trusted as a backup to Nick Chubb? And more importantly, I can be trusted to fill in for Nick Chubb if that time comes. And hopefully it doesn't, but 2 years ago, that time did come, and Kareem Hunt did do a good job. And then Dearness Johnson did a great job of filling in for the both of them, right? Ford, during training camp, he needs to kill any idea, any talk, any chatter of the Browns looking external and signing a running back. Because as I film this right now on Thursday afternoon during our live show, 5 o'clock Eastern, there are still some pretty notable names on the market, right? Zeke, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook. So Jerome Ford needs to go out there over 4 preseason games and show Andrew Berry and this coaching staff, don't go to those veterans. Have faith in me. Trust yourselves. You picked me in the 5th round of last year's draft. Now I've got the opportunity. Let me show you what I can do. Stump Mitchell, the Browns running back coach, recently talked about Jerome Ford, and he said this: Jerome's got a skill set that allows him to do anything and everything. Pass protection, we worked a lot on that this spring, so that was really the only thing we didn't have a good handle on because he didn't do it a lot in college. Jerome Ford needs to show that, hey, I can go in on 3rd down and make sure Deshaun Watson stays upright. Because that's a lot of times when Nick Chubb gets, a breather on 3rd and 11, and Jerome Ford can't go in there and be a liability in pass protection. But when it comes to the Browns' second running back, who do you think it's going to be? Jerome Ford or free agent? I think, and I kind of hope, it is Jerome Ford. At some point, you have to hit on some of your draft picks. You just can't build an entire roster through trades and free agency. Financially, it's just not feasible. Right? There is a beauty to hitting on draft picks, and one of them is you get to have them on their rookie contract and have them be a contributing player. You just can't go out and over and over and over again sign guys to what looks like cheap $1 to $3 to $4 million contracts, but those stack up. You need to hit on some of your own draft picks, and I hope Ford gets that opportunity. The second player I think that has the most to prove at training camp would be wide receiver Jakeem Grant. So Jakeem Grant comes in with a different, approach than Jerome Ford on this video because he's coming off a torn Achilles, which he unfortunately suffered last August during training camp. And he turns 31 years old this season in October. And the former Pro Bowl return man for the Bears and the Dolphins in 2021. Sorry, ignore the typo. He tore his Achilles in August 2022. It's hard to believe it's already 2023. I've done that like twice now. But anyway. Back on track. The Browns wide receiver room is very, very competitive, right? You look at the wide receiver depth chart right now, and the 4 faces on screen are all locks to make the roster. Cooper, DPJ, Moore, Goodwin. So if you're taking 6 wide receivers, Cedric Tillman is also a lock. That's 5. Even Bell is going to make it. You just don't move on from 3rd-round picks after one season when they weren't bad or, getting arrested. So now we're at 6 wide receivers. Maybe they take 7, and that 7th will be between Jakeem Grant, Jalen Darden, uh, Dalen Baldwin, Anthony Schwartz, and that's where the battle really heats up here. So the training camp battle that I'm kind of excited to watch for is between Jakeem Grant and Jalen Darden as this team's return specialist. Now, the special teams value has somewhat plummeted over the last couple of years, especially going into this year with the new fair catch rule where teams can just fair catch kick returns and bring it out to the 25. And that takes a lot of what Jakeem Grant brings to the team, offers the table away. But this is going to be a training camp battle, and Jakeem Grant has to go out and show that he has recovered from that Achilles tear, and he is worthy of that final roster spot in the wide receiver room. Now, I do want to give a special shout-out to those of you in our Noti gang. Just a couple people that I frequently see in the comment section, always down there when the video goes out, commenting away. Cool guy called Zone, one of the first to come to our live shows every single week. Tim Matchkin, Anthony Mosley, Kimberly Hurst, Egu357. There are so many more names. Joshua Miller, you know who you are. Unfortunately, only have room for 5. But hey, if you want to be on screen and you want to get a shout out, turn your notifications on. That way when a video goes out, you're one of the first to click on it, one of the first to comment, and we'll get you on screen for a future Browns report. Third and final player with the most to prove between Greenbrier, West Virginia, or Greenbrier Resort, and Berea would be Jordan Elliott. Now, Jordan Elliott is here for a different reason than the other guys. Elliott is not here to prove that he is worthy of a roster spot. He is here to prove he is worthy of a starting position, right? Similar to Ford, Elliott needs to fight off any ideas of going external to replenish this defensive line after moving on from Perion Winfrey. But he also has some added bonus and incentives. He needs to go out there and show he can start for this team a second straight season because last year was a disaster. There's just no other way around it. I'm sorry, but his Pro Football Focus grades speak for themselves. Overall grade of 40.4. Ranked 118th out of 127 qualifying players. Against the run, 33.0. Pass rush was a little bit better at 59.0. And it kind of makes me wonder. I think we can all agree Jordan Elliott can't stop the run. Just can't do it. But maybe with the acquisition of Dalvin Tomlinson coming over to Cleveland, Elliott won't be asked to stop the run now that Dalvin Tomlinson is there and that's his primary job. So maybe they save Jordan Elliott for not the early run stopping downs, but instead maybe he comes in for third downs, right? And he's an extra defensive lineman. And they decide, you know what? We tried having you be a 3-down lineman last year. You can't do it on first and second. But maybe Maurice Hurst could be better at stopping the run on 1st and 10, and Jordan Elliott could come in on 3rd down. But nevertheless, Jordan Elliott has to prove he can still be a starting player on this team because going into training camp this year, he does not have that job as locked down as he did last year. So predict it for me. Will Jordan Elliott start week 1? Yes or no? Ultimately, I think he will. I think it's a little bit early to just hand that job over to the rookie Ika unless they sign someone. Maybe by the time you're watching this, they have signed someone. But I think if they don't add anyone based on this current depth chart, Elliott will be the week 1 starter. Let's pick a card to wrap up the show. Mr. McCullough, what are you thinking? We're both 0 for 2 during this live show extravaganza this Thursday afternoon as we film this.
Yeah, let's go with the 7 of clubs.
7 of clubs. Okay. I'm going to go with the Queen of Diamonds. Ace of Spades. Ace of Spades. Okay, Ace of Spades. That will be it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like today's video, consider subscribing. We put out more free Browns content all year long.